Hello everyone and welcome. In this presentation, we will explore the key factors that influence the adoption of innovative asset management technologies, or in short, IAMT for infrastructure systems. This presentation is structured as follows. I will begin with an introduction, followed by the problem statement and justification. I will then review past studies and present the theoretical model and hypothesis developed. Next, I will explain the methodology used and the approach to data analysis. The presentation will then cover the findings and discussion. Finally, I will conclude with the key conclusions and recommendations. Civil infrastructure assets include roads, highways, ports, airports, stormwater drainage systems, sewerage systems, rails, and transit. In recent years, civil infrastructure systems have been facing unprecedented challenges such as aging assets, limited budget for maintenance, society's need for high-quality services, climate change-related natural hazards such as extreme cyclones and flash floods. Asset management is a concept and practice that enables organizations to balance their financial goals while effectively allocating their resources to deliver improved levels of reliability and customer service. Despite its importance, several challenges hinder the effective implementation of asset management. These include lack of institutional and legal framework to support asset management practices, as well as limited implementation for formal asset management frameworks. In addition, there is a lack of integrated tools and technologies such as sensors and GPS systems for effective management of infrastructure assets. In light of these challenges, this study is guided by the following research question. What are the factors affecting the adoption of innovative asset management technologies for infrastructure systems in Mauritius? The objectives of the study are as follows: to conduct a detailed literature review for internationally and locally available journals, research papers, and documents related to the project, to determine the factors related to the adoption of IAMT, to construct a theoretical model and develop hypotheses, to evaluate the impact of the construct affecting the adoption of IAMT and validate the model, to rank the barriers and enabling tools affecting adoption of IAMT and provide recommendations. One of the past studies is described in the table: adoption of digital technologies for asset management in construction projects by Itencha and Matos in Brazil. The method used was Technology of Acceptance Model (TAM) to investigate factors influencing technology adoption in intelligent asset management, and qualitative method, that is semi-structured interviews and analysis, was done using WebQDA software. The study recommended researchers to focus on developing a quantitative study to validate the adoption factors. Several past case studies have also been carried out that identified several difficulties and enabling factors encountered while implementing IAMT. These were integrated in the questionnaire survey for the respondents to rank which items they consider the most impactful. Our study combines the diffusion of innovation (DOI) theory, technology acceptance model (TAM), and the theory of planned behavior (TPB) to develop the hypothesis on the factors influencing the adoption of IAMT. Hypothesis number 1: relative advantage has a positive effect on the attitude towards using IAMT. Number 2: compatibility has a positive effect on the attitude towards using IAMT. Number 3: complexity has a negative effect on the attitude towards using IAMT. Number 4: observability has a positive effect on the attitude towards using IAMT. Number 5: perceived usefulness positively impacts attitude towards using IAMT. Number 6: perceived usefulness positively impacts subjective norm to use IAMT. Number 7: perceived ease of use positively impacts attitude to use IAMT. Number 8, perceived ease of use positively impacts perceived behavioral control to use IEMT. Number 9, attitude towards using IEMT positively affects the intention to use IEMT. Number 10, subjective norm positively impacts the intention to use IEMT. And number 11, perceived behavioral control positively impacts the intention to use IEMT. This slide illustrates the proposed theoretical model developed for this study. The model is structured based on the Stimulus Organism Response (SOR) framework, integrating DOI, TAM, and TPB to explain users the intention to adopt asset management framework and technologies. The methodology used was as follows. A desk study was carried out and gaps in asset management and adoption of IEMT were identified in Mauritius. Examination of existing case studies and research papers were carried out to identify factors influencing adoption of IEMT. Existing barriers and enabling factors were identified. Quantitative analysis was selected. A theoretical model was proposed and 11 hypotheses were developed. The target population was identified and the sample size was calculated. A pilot survey was then carried out with 10 participants. The questionnaire survey was finalized and distributed among targeted participants to collect data. Data was collected and the interrelationships between the variables were analyzed using SPSS software. Conclusions and recommendations were provided based on the findings. Now let's dive into the core of our findings. The table shows the demographic data of the 276 respondents categorized by gender, education, occupation, field of work, and years of experience. The reliability of each variable or construct was confirmed using Cronbach's alpha. The values for the Cronbach's alpha obtained were above 0.7 for all the variables, showing high internal consistency and reliability. The techniques to test the hypothesis were simple linear regression, which was used to test the relationships between the independent and the dependent variables for the theoretical model. To assess the barriers and enabling tools, relative importance index method was used to rank these items. The table shows the path coefficients, regression coefficients beta, and the t-values regression calculations and the p-values. The p-values for all the variables were less than 0.05, indicating the significant paths between the variables. As per the DOI theory, relative advantage is most impactful. This implies that the benefits of IEMT would more likely influence users to adopt IEMT. TAM theory, perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use had nearly similar impact. If usefulness of IEMT increases, people are more likely to adopt it due to peer influence. As per TPB, the impact of perceived behavioral control on the intention to use IEMT is highly significant. If resources and support are available to users, they will be more likely to adopt IEMT. The barriers were identified and ranked using the RII method. It was ranked in this order. Lack of skilled personnel. Second, limited human resources. Third, lack of proper organizational strategy. Fourth, fewer tools in the area of asset management. Fifth, available funds. Sixth, integration difficulties. Other barriers identified were lack of time to learn, IEMT, local work culture, and lack of training. The enabling tools were also ranked using the same method. These were ranked in the following order. First, develop an experienced team. Second, proper training of staff. And third, uniform data integration. Other enabling tools identified were funding and providing incentive programs. To conclude, this study has identified several critical factors central to the adoption of innovative asset management technologies. Infrastructure assets are prone to deterioration and face environmental risk. These need to be effectively managed by the application of proper organizational procedures and adoption of IAMT. This study emphasized on the factors that influence the adoption of IAMT. This can provide insights to policymakers, public and private organizations who can focus on the most influential factors and encourage the use of IAMT. Policymakers may concentrate on perceived behavioral control, which refers to users' internal perceptions of how to use or how difficult it is to use IAMT. This entails offering additional resources to facilitate the shift to IAMT for programs like guided online training courses and a helpline to assist the technologies training. Since complexity has a negative impact on attitude, it is advised setting up a proper asset management framework which would address issues to manage assets. Skilled and experienced project managers can thus train other junior employees and project team members to implement IAMT frameworks and use the required technology. For researchers, it is recommended that future studies are carried out using real case studies in companies which have started using IAMT to assess validity of results and explore other potential factors which may have been overlooked in this study. It can be concluded that there are different barriers and enabling tools to the adoption of IAMT, and it is believed that these recommendations made in the study will aid in encouraging the adoption by public and private sectors in Mauritius. That concludes the formal presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.